What's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in Channel 99 today. I've got my boy Omid here, one of my gym rat homies. He's got a very unique and interesting background, and he came to share a little bit about that. We go off in the beginning a little bit about space and all
cosmoses and different lifestyle and what's out there.
And the overall theme, I guess, to today's show is just be a good person and ask questions if you don't have an understanding of what it is that you're being told, or if there's any confusion, because I think questions are very powerful as far as making sure that, you know, incorrect information is not being spread rapidly, especially in today's current bandwidth of just information being force-fed to you, and it's just almost an upload overload all the time. Does that make sense?
I definitely agree with you. Like I said before, I'm going to say it really quickly. Your words become your thoughts become your actions become your habits.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so if we can all do that as human beings, we can all create a better world.
Totally. Good call. Just want to give a shout out to our sponsors. We got Jack's Nutrition. They're running a deal on our other sponsor, which is Pro Edge Nutrition. That's my company. That's how I afford this studio. And then we've also, Jax is doing a deal. It's a 1 for 30, 2 for 40, 3 for 50 on our volumizer blend. It's the only place that sells it because we contract with athletic programs. We don't really sell to the general public. So go ahead and swing by, snag the extra overstock that we got from this year's football season because it's killer. Mix it with everything and anything that you currently take. And then also shout out to Rhino Rush. They're another one of our sponsors. If you head over to rhinorush.com and you check out, just type in channel 9915, that's CHANNEL 9915, you're going to get 15% off. And if you get the boxes, I mean, that comes out to like a really good deal per shot. Highly recommend the Rhino Rush Relax. That's very popular here in the studio. So make sure you check out all of our other episodes. We have had on amazing guests, but in the meantime, sit down, shut up, and listen to my show, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Shut up and sit down.
I was never into space or any kind of cosmosis or anything like that. But then I started really thinking deep, and then my mindset kind of clicked 2 years ago. I was in San Diego, actually, and we're at Balboa Park with my whole family. I was visiting my cousin because we were down there for his engagement, actually. Mm-hmm. So, you know, what a random time, like you would think about it. But honestly, we were out there walking around with the family right next to the zoo, you know, because San Diego Zoo is in Balboa Park, if you've been in San Diego.
Yeah.
And so that whole area, so I was thinking about it, and all of a sudden, these guys had their telescopes out. And I was like, what the heck? Like, you know, like, I mean, I've always been interested. I've never got into it, though.
Mm-hmm.
And so I go up there, and this guy's like, you want to see where we are in space? And he does this, like, whole 3D image where it's like a picture. You're seeing, like, a big picture of space.
Mm-hmm. And
he points out there, like, in the middle of nowhere, just this little dot. He goes, that's Earth, bud. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, you're tripping me out. Like, you know, we're not that small.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like, I start really studying afterwards. Like, after that night, like, something clicked with me. I've always been curious that what is afterlife. But a lot of people don't do what others should do, is to study history. And there's so much to history. If you see every culture, every race has done some sort of evil in the past. But also, there's a lot of signs from outer space. other mankind. You know, a lot of people have grown up with religion perspective, have different views, and I respect that all around. You do what is best for you, man, like or a woman. But at the same time, there's this whole idea of like what is out there. And we haven't even done it. And you know, like it gets really interesting if you like really study space and you know, a lot of NASA folks that worked in NASA from the late 50s to like the early 70s and late 60s, their thought was we would already have a station in moon, and then we would already been to Mars and back by now. But let's be real, what is going on with that? I mean, they made a movie about how to survive on Mars. How could you do that without some sort of facts?
I was looking at this today, actually. So NASA, you know, lately they've been coming out with like, oh, Mars now has like water on it, like ice. So like the poles on Mars, they have like tons of ice. And now they just told us that there was water on the moon, and there's like a light atmosphere now on the moon. And there's things, and it's probably because I'm force-fed a lot of that because of the articles that I do pull up on these threads. You know, they're tracking that, so they're going to force-feed me the stuff that I want to read, stay engaged. So I come across a lot of these articles, and it's just really interesting how, if you look back into the Hollywood conspiracy with like how they use Hollywood as a way to, you know, gauge the public's interest or disinterest, or, you know, what their reactions might be to certain events, world events, interstellar events, you know, whatever it might be. So, I mean, we could really go down the rabbit hole on stuff like that. But to be honest with you, I 100% believe one of two things. A, we did not go to the moon, and it's complete bullshit. Or B, we've been there. We engaged with extraterrestrial life and possibly multiple types of inhabitants on the moon, because if you look at a lot of the scrubbings, you can go to Google Moon. It's like Google Earth, but it's Google Moon. And if you type in like weird stuff on Google Moon, their coordinates, a lot of times they've been scrubbed, but some of the time you can still go to those coordinates on Google Moon, and you can pull up these pictures of weird shit that like should not be on the moon. Cool. And it's just, you know, so it's like, A, we've never been there, and it's just a lie just to win the space race, or B, we made it there, and, you know, there was a Roswell crash, and we are, you know, being dumbed down because if we really, really knew what was going on, it would fuck a lot of people's lives up, dude. Can you imagine if all these people who are stuck on, you know, one being, God, who created this planet in 7 days, you know, and of course a day in his, you know, a day in his life is going to be, you know, thousands of years, millions, I don't know, however long it would take to create a planet in 7 days for somebody like him, or he's just a wizard. And so when I think of stuff like that, it's like, if people found out that we were a hybrid race from some type of colony outside of, you know, our solar system, and we're basically a petri dish, and they came down here and, you know, depending on certain theories you might hear about or believe in, such as, you know, having, what was it, the tablets that Zecharia Sitchin, he deciphered, what was it? Man, I read like 3 of these books too. What are they called? Gotta help me out, dude. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's the history of the world based on the, it's like the oldest tablets ever. I've talked about this on so many different shows and I can't remember. Anyways, long story short, it would really screw people's lives up, man. To find out that we're not some special creature that has been put here for a purpose, but find out that we are just a science experiment that was either a defunct, or they continue to monitor us via UFO, observation and USO observation.
But think about, what does our government do anyways? We live in a place that is secretly run by media, destroyed by media.
It's not even secretly run by media. It is completely run by media, and we
but
all
it's
know
like
it.
But what I'm saying is, like, one side says one thing, the other side says the other thing, and then there's a middle guy that says something else. It is completely destroyed all over, and people are like choosing sides pretty much. And that's pretty much, if you look at and I hate to say this, but like, if you look at like our way of like voting in politicians, it's become that way. You either listen to Fox or you listen to CNN. You know what I mean? It's kind of been manipulated that way. But the other thing is too, when we go back to space, is that, like, I know like what you're talking about, the Google Moon thing. One time I was reading an article, and it actually showed a picture of actually station-based of mankind on the moon.
Some kind on the moon.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've seen... there's structures, there's piers, there's satellite dishes, there's weird shit up there, man.
But then also this gets really interesting, because I really started searching deep into this. So I watched the Ancient Alien, the Russia and United States Cold War fact.
Space war.
Yeah, the space war and everything, and how like pretty much how United States and Russia fronted this Cold War idea for its people and the world to believe. And behind, they had the New Mexico accident with an outer space, what's it called?
Area 51.
Yep, Area 51. And then in Russia, and down in the, where, if you look
there was
down,
another down craft over there.
at the same time.
In Germany.
Yeah. And then, but the Russians had a lot more intelligence, because we believed, and some secretly in the world believes, that they somehow had a survivor that survived that crash from outer space, and which is crazy. So, and the other thing is, I was watching another History Channel stuff just on the same thing, that they was going depth on it, and it was Obama and the Prime Minister of Russia sitting alongside each other. And if you look closer to the gap of what Obama's saying to the Prime Minister of Russia, he straight out says, "Tell Putin I want space." And then 2 years later, we got our president now wants Space Force. I mean, let's be real. Like, if you're going to tell us something, let's just be real with us. But you're right. A lot of people in this country and across the world would not be able to completely resonate and understand what's really going on if you tell them that we are being contacted by outer space. People will freak out. I mean, unless you're intelligent. I mean, let's believe. Some people believe that Earth was flat for a long time.
People still believe the Earth is flat.
I know, but now they believe it's a donut hole, which is weird even more. Because I'm like, you can get on Google, hit straight out NASA satellite, and watch Earth from freaking space anytime. Yeah. Anytime you want to. You can easily do it yourself. I mean, let's be real. Like, you got to use your resources out there too. And I think it's funny when I hear a little things like that. Like, when I hear a national basketball player say, "I think the Earth is flat." I'm like, bro, didn't you go to University of Duke?
Which is a good school.
Which is a really top school. So, Kyrie Irving, if you're listening to me, man, you got to stop losing your mind a little bit. I know the injuries are catching up to you, but you're a very good player, and you went to University of Duke. So don't say the Earth is flat on national television, bro. Just saying that out there because I respect you, but that was a little bit out of line. I think it's just crazy. What I'm going back to is, like, use your resource. There's so much dominant history evidence that proves that we're not alone. And I'm not saying anything about religion and perspective of other things. I respect everybody from their perspectives, but I also believe there's an idea with religion. Religion is nothing with science. Science is nothing with religion. And there's facts to it. And people who deny it and say they're like, oh, this is not a resistance thing. Dude, I'm sorry to say this as a person. If you look at every monumental like empire in history, there's some sort of weird evidence to their creative ideas and how they built their empire, how they nurtured and established themselves for so many centuries. And to me, it's like mankind will always need some sort of help. I mean, let's be real. Some people think Elon Musk is a freaking alien. That's a weird thing. I mean, the guy's just a genius.
He's pretty weird, dude.
He is a weird dude.
He's a little odd.
He's a little bit odd. That podcast I saw with Joe Rogan, I tripped that because I watched it 3 different times because I was like, I love Elon Musk and I love what he does within the world and how dominant he is within his ideas. I don't take anything back from that dude. But the guy was a little bit weird after, he popped a couple drags off that J, and he was like tripping. Like, I was like, dude, you're not even talking like yourself anymore.
Did you watch his it was a mashup between his interview with Rogan and Alex Jones's interview with Rogan?
They were talking. I watched the highlight where they were talking about it, and Joe Rogan even said like how weird he was after the smoking part, and I was like, and he was like, but those guys freak me out. I watched that part where he's like telling that stuff, and he's like, dude, they tell me some stuff that makes sense.
Well, they like totally confirmed the whole technology taking over mankind.
The AI one?
Yeah,
oh yeah, that's so.
Yeah.
I mean, people are so slow to the idea that we're not even in the AI generation. It's kind of crazy. Let me tell you something. Your phone, that is part of your life now. You can't live without it.
Of you, man.
It is with like Elon Musk said, like he's like, without your phone, you are not smarter. With your phone, you are smarter because you can research and have everything in your database. Everything that your brain does, a phone does. I don't know if people understand that, but they need to do a little research on that. But the fact is that we are consuming ourselves with this idea that we need to be better. We need to do things better. So we need to build this engineering, manufactured robot who does everything that we do. Okay, if you're going to do that, why not do it in a manner, in a way that solves the world's problem, not create a problem? Because think about it. It's just like iRobots, the movie with Will Smith. We are not smart about a lot of things we do, to be honest with you, Tim. I mean, let's be honest. I'm from Afghanistan. A lot of people don't know personally or do know. I grew up in Boise, Idaho. I have family in Cali. I have family in the East Coast and stuff like that, But the thing is that people don't understand how to stop being closed-minded with certain things. It kind of kills your way of knowledge. I feel bad for certain individuals when I see them, because honestly, I do a lot of people watching everywhere I go.
I love people watching.
I don't know what is up with me, but I think growing up the way I grew up in a very tough, hard environment, but mostly like to make sure the mannerism was the first thing, it makes me super aware of my actions everywhere I'm at. I think that, like, when I was younger, I didn't mind having fun and dancing around and goofing off at the bars and stuff like that. Now as an adult, I'm like, if I'm not like in a relationship with somebody, I'm not going to go just goof off in the middle of the dance floor. Unless it's like a boys' night where we're just celebrating like a little brother's birthday or something,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna go just goof off. Like that's just me. But like back to the other part is just like, I think like growing up in this culture, being Afghan American, is the way I put it, because I come from Afghanistan, but I grew up in America.
Yeah, go ahead and introduce yourself for everybody, by the way, now that we're 15, 20 minutes in.
You're good. So my name is Omid, and well, my full name is Omid Sherafzal, but I'm in the process of changing it. And I'm actually from Afghanistan, 26 years old. Just had a back operation again for the second time in my lower spine. But I grew up in Boise, Idaho. I love this town. I hate the way it's turning out to be. But hey, my heart, no matter where I go in this world and what I do, but my heart will always be with this little area of Idaho. Just because I have lost, I have loved, I've been broken down, I have fallen on my face, I have been picked up, washed it off, done it so many different ways. If you've named injuries that I've been through, I can name them all. But most of all, I do want to say this because I'm on your podcast. By the way, your brother and PK Camps, Mr. Camps, if you're listening, you two are one of two best men I've ever met when I was in high school. I'm not even kidding you. Bo, I adore your brother like a really dear friend. When I went to Capitol, these were the only two honest, easygoing guys that came up to me and made me feel like I was part of Capitol within the first couple days, because I was trying to play football there too, after my senior year. But honestly, things didn't work out that way, because I ended up going to Centennial to play basketball, of course. But I just wanted to say that, you know what, you got some amazing family, but also some really good friends. PK, I love you like a brother, bro, and he knows that. So, but yeah, back to what we were gonna say.
No, dude, that was awesome. Well, I was just, the only reason I asked you to introduce yourself, which was an awesome introduction of yourself. I don't even think I could introduce myself like that. But the reason I asked is because you started getting into basically what we had you over here for, was what it was like growing up here.
The diversity part.
The diversity.
Yeah. You know what? I don't think people understand. My heart is loving what Boise is becoming. I'm going to break that down for you. My heart is loving what Boise is becoming. With the traffic flow, it sucks. I hate Eagle Road. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm sorry to say this. Like, when you told me you lived on this side, I was like, dude, I have to cross that light. I was like, oh, dang. Because honestly, I don't, like, there's even my, like, our other houses, like, out this way on McMillan and, down, like, on Meridian and Linder area, I don't even like going that way. Mm-mm. I'm like, screw it. Yeah. I'm sorry, like, I don't want to sit in traffic. But back to what I'm saying, the diversity part of Boise, Boise, stay strong, stay loving, stay together. Honestly, this is what this town is built from. When I moved here back in 2001, it was a different world, bro. If I remembered, there was 119,863 people in the Treasure Valley when I moved here.
Damn, that's pretty good memory.
Yeah, dude, I have some weird psycho memory, but like I remember that number, and I remember gas was like $1.63, like like $1.64, like it was super cheap.
That's when I started driving. I think I filled up at homecoming or prom at like $1.79, something like that, and that was in like 2001, 2002. I
was like 8-9 years old at that time, so I was like, I remember a lot of things from my childhood memories, just because I've always processed certain things and have just kind of took it inside of me and like try to like make an actual like perspective of it. Mm-hmm. But back to what I was saying with the diversity part is that you know, there were some mean kids when I was growing up. Let's just break that down.
Mm-hmm.
Some kids hated me. They didn't understand me at all, dude. Like, at all. Like, they were like looking at me. They were like, he's good at sports, but he's different than us.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just, and I get it. Like, media dominated our early generation of 21st century in a really negative way. And it still kind of does to some perspective, but I'm not going to take on that because that's none of my business. Media will do what media wants to. But it really killed, like, a lot of my perspective of what I thought of friendship could be and with certain people. So that kind of outskirted everything. And then when you had the war going on starting, like right after 9/11, and then you had the media talking about it, I remember I would get in trouble like every week, dude, at school. And a lot of kids try to
defending yourself.
Oh yeah, all the time. Like you had kids shoving me, pulling me, like in the when I was in fourth grade, I hung out with kids that were fifth graders and sixth graders. Actually, some of the fifth graders. Let me break that down. Some of the fifth graders, these guys were cousins. So there was Davion, Devontae, Trayvon, and then their other cousin Josh, who JT I still like I've known for a long time. And these African American boys were they were ballers. Like, let's just break it down. Like, talent, naturally, like most naturally talented kids. So I remember like there was this huge fight over football, just because one of the sixth graders got leveled by one of the fifth graders. And in those days, it was
recess ball was hard, bro.
Yeah, it was like down.
So many fights in elementary school.
So we had sixth graders, like, after that play, just bulldozer all the fifth graders in the middle of the field. And I'm stuck in the middle of the field because I'm still like, I'm the one that stopped the guy at the end, and I'm like with Trayvon and all them, and they're all like jumping in this fight. And I'm just standing there. So everybody gets all pulled in the principal's office, and they're like, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, I was with Trayvon and them. Like, it was funny, super, super funny thing. But I think at that point right there, it made sense for me to always stand up, but never do it in a negative manner. Mm-hmm. But I was the kind of kid that didn't put up with anybody's BS or dramas. Like, I would get called a terrorist. I'd get called a towelhead. I'd be called a piece of shit. Like, and that's just a few of the names that I'm gonna just throw out on the table. So people said mean things all the time, but I think by the time I got into sophomore year in high school, it just didn't faze me anymore, honestly. Like I think that man right there, and watching a lot of his old talks with Malcolm X and stuff like that, it changed my world.
Talking about Ali.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
One of the biggest quote I live by with Ali is that if a man looks at life at 20 and then he does at 50, then he has wasted 30 years of his life. I take that very deeply to myself every single day. And I think that's why I have this tattoo inside my forearm. It says, "Make each day your masterpiece." And right below it, there's flowers that are colored and everything. And that's the thing, though, is like, just because people are disgusting in the world does not mean you need to level down to them, at the same time. It's a, how you say it, people will always be people. Mm-hmm. So be better. Because if you're better, you're going to leave the world a better place. And sometimes I don't have the best reactions with that. I'm going to be honest. I'm not perfect at all. I keep getting harassed by somebody that I thought was a friend of mine, and he owns 2 supplement stores in town. And that to me, for you to harass me and to call me out on something that I deeply believe, I see it like I mean it. I don't try to sugarcoat to nobody. I'm sorry. Like, I don't think I'm better than anybody. I don't think I am more than anybody. I don't think I'm smarter than anybody. I think I just am very open-minded than most of my peers and friends, because I try to educate myself. Like, I grew up with a foreign mom who questions 99% of things that she hears in English. You know what I mean? So, like, think about it. Growing up outside the house, you have a different culture. Mm-hmm. Inside the house, you have a different culture. And if you look at the way they're raised, the Muslim culture, of course, changed since the oil production, and they just became super tied, and religion just became super household with everything else that happened in the Middle East. So I had to, like, completely change my perspective of being one-sided, as the way I like to call it. Because if you look around this town, a lot of these guys, these foreign guys, I'm not trying to be any disrespectful towards them, but a lot of them, they're only dominated one way. They're either Americanized or they're
very traditional.
Very traditional, you know. And a lot of it has to do with their fatherhood. You know, who is the fatherhood in the house and how they're raised. You know, I'm a huge believer of that. You know, I was unfortunate, didn't have my pops in my life, but I had an amazing mom who did everything like a mom and dad. And when I didn't do something right, I got my ass handed to me. Mm-hmm. I'm not kidding with you when I say, like, I got my butt handed to me. Like, when people think, like, you know, I posted this thing on Facebook the other night about if kids don't behave properly in school, they can get the paddle. Mm-hmm. Bro, if I told you the things that my cousin did to me for not doing my homework, these parents were scream on live television. Mm-hmm. Like, I had the pencils. Tariq is listening, and he lives down in San Diego. I love him like he's my cousin, but I love him like my big brother, because if it wasn't that hardship of growing up with some sort of, like, deep down, you know, like, will and having to do certain things that you don't like doing, it was about not making me, like, suffer in pain, but it was teaching me how to teach me how much school is important, you know, how much education is important. And the more you learn, the more you have knowledge, you know. And the other thing is that I had pencils in between my fingers and pressed down if I didn't do my homework or if I failed on a test that we actually went over. Mm-hmm. So the best thing that I did for me, and I became very dominant in, was math. I studied math like a genius, dude. It was crazy. Like, and
it's because it was just so cut and dry. You either got it or you didn't. So it was,
to me, it just made super sense. Like, it's, to me, it is amusing when I go to like a gas station or like a fast food or restaurant, and I hand them a change, and they have to process what's going on in their head, and to, like, sit there, tell the counter, like, you know, the POS system actually tells them back or whatever it is. Dude, I've already done that math in my head. Mm-hmm. Like, it's weird. Like, I hate to see this generation be like that, like, so dependent on a simple technology. It's like, yes, you're better with technology, but you should have that common sense of that common knowledge of basic math, which is lacking a lot. And I've heard of it, like, in different areas of the country as well, because of the family travels and stuff like that. But it's interesting that, you know, coming from a diversity family, you know, I think it's important to talk about this too, is that men get the different treatment than women do in every culture. Mm-hmm. And I know of a family that's in this town. They're about 4 sisters, I believe it is, or 5 sisters, I'm not sure. Their parents understand how important education is, but they don't allow them to explore outside of school. And that kind of kills a person's inner soul when you can't really live up to what you wanted to live up to. You know, I've always said, you know,
But why can't they? Like, do they not have the freedom?
they don't have the same freedom men do. It's just like in any other culture.
Oh, it's like a cultural suppression.
Yeah.
It's not because their parents are like, no.
No, the crazy part is that a lot of these folks, and a lot of these parents are so dominant in their cultural. But then it's like, why'd you move to the United States then? It's a weird thing. I just think about this question. It's
a very different place.
Yeah, it's a very opposite place if you're not ready for it. It is a 180. I mean, let's be real. Like, I say I am Afghan American, but I'm very dominant in certain ways of being American and in certain ways of being Afghan.
Yeah. And what would you say is more dominant?
My more dominant is like, let's see.
Do you think like your cultural? Well, I guess you're American and Afghanistan. So I guess, is it more of like the values that were instilled as how to treat people and
I think it's those home principles that that are different. You know,
like your foundation.
Yeah, the foundation. You
have a traditional foundation, but you're like very westernized.
There's the
in
perspective.
how you apply that.
Yeah, and there's that thing is that, you know, like, we live in a very, very dominant, fast world, and I don't think people really understand unless you've been into a very fast city, you know. And people are like super uptight about the understanding of, well, we are just this way. It's always been this way. It's like, no, the world is changing, and if you're not ready for it, you're gonna not last very long.
It's a dog-eat-dog world, man.
It is. And, you know, the other thing is that with this diversity thing is that I feel like there's certain home care principles of being of a family man and putting family above everything. Those are, I think, a lot of values that I've carried since my childhood. And, you know, I think that's one of the main reasons I've stayed single is because I have a mom, I have a sister who just got engaged to a really nice gentleman, American man, and I have a little brother, you know, and for me it's like I want to see him grow, but I also like know that I have to make certain sacrifice at the end of it. I didn't know that when I was younger. I was like, oh, I when I got into fitness and stuff like that, I mean, to be honest with you, I had girls hitting me up from all over the world. And to this day, it kind of happens sometimes. But I don't take it personally because I'm like, you can't be you without some sort of like sacrifice you have to make at a certain point in your life. And you know, I think it's a cool thing that I learned because I saw how much my mom made sacrifice, you know. She worked 2 jobs in America. An Afghan American woman who barely spoke English, but she understood how to communicate with other people from other cultures very well, which made me very interested because she understood Russian at one point, and she still does to a certain point. She understood Bosnian, she understood Spanish, and she could also understand the basic way of communicating in English. So for me, you know, I look at like, you know, like she does, like, and we have a lot of families in the States that we're here to create a better life, a better future. Me being ignorant and fighting as a kid, I think changed a lot of who I am now, because I, as much as like I grew up in a Muslim home, I also became very open-minded, very fast. At like 13, I questioned a lot of things I knew before I started exploring. I was sitting there and I was like, what's up there? But what's down there? You know, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. At age 8, I saw my own grandma cough her own blood before she passed away in the hospital. She had a heart attack and a stroke. I'm gonna give you another history. My own stepmom tried to poison me and my little brother, or my older brother, and she killed us. Well, she killed him, but she didn't. I survived at 1.5, at age 1.5. And then the other thing is like,
why would she do that?
Jealousy. See, the thing is that with the Muslim culture is that there's that multi-marriage allowed too, as long as you. But at that point, mom and dad were separated.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like and mom and dad were separated because how my family comes from a very upper class Afghans, landowners, government people, different leaders, and I think that's what
it was, a control thing.
It was a control thing, but I think a lot of people don't understand is that you can't take evil out of an evil person.
Mm-mm.
You just can't. So she always had that in her heart. And so I don't feel bad for her. I don't feel sorry for her. But what I do feel for her is that she's going to live in a miserable life for the rest of her life. Because she has to know what she did. And she has to come into some sort of sense that she did that.
Did she go to prison? What happened to her?
We don't know to this day what happened to her. And then I remember a couple years ago, right before we moved here, I was visiting with my mom. 1999, Kabul, Afghanistan. I'm walking around with my jeans. No, it's not 1999. No, it is 1999. It is 1999. I was right. Yeah, 1999. I'm 7 years old. This is my last time I'm actually in Afghanistan for the final time. And I'm walking with my mom, and she has the hijab down, covered up completely, head to toe.
And that's what kind of law again?
That's the Taliban rules. That's never been the Muslim rules.
Oh.
That's never been the Muslim tradition. Let's break that down. Like, my mom grew up in the 70s, right? Mm-hmm. She was born in the 60s, grew up in the 70s in her teens. She said, when I walked around from my teens to my adulthood, when I walked around before I met your dad, Afghanistan was a place where women wear skirts. They walked around. They went on dates. Mm-hmm. It was a different Afghanistan than what people think they know about Afghanistan. Americans visited Afghanistan.
Was it the prince or somebody who put that in? It was basically like a martial law, right?
Yeah, it was the Saudi Arabia prince. That's thanks to the Gatsby family for making those oils in the Middle East, but they screwed up the rest of the Middle East countries because you allowed Saudi Arabia to have the most dominance because of the money power.
And that's what it was. That was where that law came down from.
Pretty much. Yeah. It just started right there. And then you got to think about it. This gets interesting. They created the Patriot Act after 9/11. Mm-hmm. But they've been hacking and wiring tap phones since 1978. And then the first time they actually wiretap messaging was in World War II in 1947. With that telegraph thing from England, if you've seen that one movie about it, mm-hmm. The actual guy that invented that was actually gay. And
That's
this
crazy.
It's such an interesting history to what's in the world and what's been done for the world mm-hmm. by humans. Mm-hmm. I think it's funny, like the movie Inception.
We talked about this the other day.
This is so interesting. The movie Inception changed my whole perspective on what I believed in mankind. I was in high school, actually. I was a dummy in high school. I just didn't try really hard because I sat next to the smartest girl and just copied her homework, to just be honest. But senior year project, I did it all by myself, and it was for the Patriot Act. And some of those teachers were like, what the heck are you teaching me right now? Mm-hmm. But we'll get on that on another day. So back to what I was saying is that, it's interesting that we have this two different worlds. My whole thing is that, I grew up, with the whole step parent thing and what happened and not. People don't know. After my other injury, my first spinal injury, I was in a car chase down on Park Center going towards Axiom at 5 o'clock in the morning with two other kids from BSU, I believe. I beat them with an SUV. I've always believed that it's not about the car, it's about the driver. You can have the baddest car in the world, but if you can't drive it, you won't last a minute in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I pull up to Axiom, and these guys come up and harassing and pounding on the door and everything. And it's kind of crazy. This is the first time my whole world changed on what I believed could happen in the world. Is that these guys lit up a match and threw it on the hood of the car as my car is smoking, because you can't take an SUV from going 35 to 65 at 5 o'clock in the morning and expect it not to get a little smoky afterwards. Let's just be honest.
Right.
But like, I'm sitting there and I'm like, what is going on? Like, dude, we just raced. That's all it was. All of a sudden, he's like, get the F out of the car. I'm going to beat you. Blah, 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 blah. So next thing you know, something happens with the match and whatever the heck was going on. It like lifted up out of it, like some weird wind picked it up. Like I don't know how to explain this, but I've always believed that I've had some sort of miracles and spirits around me protecting me. It like literally just flew away. And all of a sudden, somebody started coming from the front door of Axiom to see what was going on. And this is Park Center Axiom. So I'm like all freaking out, and these guys take off. So they call the cops, and the cops come out, and like I tell them what's going on and everything. So they finally busted the two kids. And they were like, yeah, we were trying to burn them alive. Yeah.
Wow.
And then when the court hearing happened and everything or whatever, I didn't go to it. I was like, karma will do its job. I'm a big believer what goes around comes around. Mm-hmm. You reap what you sow. It's written in a lot of different scriptures if you don't believe me. But the thing is that, so 3 years ago now, coming up on this February, I'm sitting right outside of Pie Hole and Fatty's. The guy comes up to me and he goes, hey, do you remember me? And I'm like, who the heck are you, dude? He goes, I'm one of the guys that tried to burn your life. And I'm like, yeah, what's up? Like all weirded out, like, what the heck does this guy want? Mm-hmm. And he goes, honestly, that was the worst thing I've ever done in my life. He goes, I just want to say I'm sorry.
I wonder what happened to him. Like, what did he tell you?
He never told. To this day, I don't know what happened to these guys. Honest to God, and I'm gonna pray, and I'm praying, and I'm swearing on my mom's life, I did not press charges. I did not tell the police that yes, those were guys. Like they knew who the guys were because they brought the pictures to me. You know how I do the identification things. Mm-hmm. But they were like, you have to go to the hearing, and I never went to the hearing. I never even went to any of the trials. Mm-hmm. I was like, maybe they were just being really stupid.
Yeah. That's like really stupid. That's
like,
very
stupid.
Like,
yeah, I get it that like I'm sitting here just 4 months out of my surgery and this is happening. Mm-hmm. And, but it was like a awakening call because for me, I was just like, okay, people are going to be evil. How far do you allow evil before you react to it? Mm-hmm. I've been in a lot of situations where I've been pushed, I've been slapped, and I've learned to walk away because I'm saying at the end of the day is that even as an Afghan American, you're not protected. To some people in the Afghan culture, I'm gonna be always looked as upon an American kid, because I don't really hang out with a lot of their kids or go to their parties or anything like that. I'm a very intuitive person. I have a second family who's my best friend for 16 years. Another childhood friend of mine that's been friends for like 14, 15 years, and another kid since 7th grade. Other than those people, and when I used to come to the Axiom and see you all the time and say, what's up? I'm very shunned away from people. Mm-hmm. Because the thing is, I've learned that people are not just scared of diversity. People are scared of getting to know other people. Mm-hmm. And it's like you don't learn nothing if you don't ask. And if you don't ask, you will never know. So my whole perspective is like, I myself, sorry, that was kind of a little bit loud. But like, I love it when people come up to me at the gym and they ask me something, or they look at my tattoo. On my side of my elbow, there's a tattoo that says, in Farsi, it says, I pray for my sins, not my deeds. And right above that is a prayer hands with a red rose. And then I have, I have another biblical verse, and it's a Romans 8 verse 31. It's if God is for me, then who could ever be against me? I grew up with those perspectives, because like people always say, well, I heard this and I heard this and I heard that, and it's kind of gets interesting when people start gossip. But I know I'm gonna say this though, America, you're not the best gossiper in the world. No, we're not even close. A lot of foreign cultures, they do it nonstop. A lot of them do it. And if you think you're lying to yourself and say, no, my culture doesn't do it, you need to get a little reality check and go visit your culture first. Mm-hmm. Go to the actual country and see it. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is that I grew up in that way of environment, and it's like that harsh environment that like, if you screw up, auntie and uncles would know. It wasn't like, oh, mom and dad and grandma would know. It was like the way I grew up, because I grew up with my cousins, my two cousins, they knew everything. Tariq, I'm very blessed with these two cousins, because they're like my brothers. But the thing is that they put a perspective on things that a lot of people wouldn't put perspective on around their other younger siblings. They'd be like, oh, they're just a kid, let them be. I see that a lot. Like also with the whole thing is that I think because a lot of times foreign cultures don't really have a lot, or they've never really had everything, I think it kind of gives them a little perspective to like slow down and understand what's going on with reality of their common sense. Don't escape from reality of what your common sense should be. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what really has made me love this whole growing up. And it's back to what I was saying, is that my whole mom being Afghan American and doing it in different ways, but like I get a joy out of it now, because I get to explain something in American way that she doesn't understand to her, because she's she grew up in a different culture. Mm-hmm. She went from growing up in a free country, a free Muslim country, where our relatives were president, and in the middle, my cousin's top uncle was a top general. His dad was a top translator. So, and my dad was a commander. So, like, I grew up in a very dominant, uphold family in the Afghan culture. So, they had this whole idea that be somebody. Don't just go do something. Be somebody. And I think like now, people don't understand. It's like I've had my last accident is when the guy I was in love with and the girl I was dating, she passed away in a car accident, a couple weeks after my injury. This time It's a different perspective. Like I'm not anywhere near that depressed mindset I was. People don't understand injuries, whether you're an ex-athlete or a pro athlete or some sort of just a fit human being. You take those things very serious. It becomes very personal. It becomes a battle that you know, my adopted grandma, she's from San Pedro, California. She's American. And she's an amazing woman. I would not be the man I am without her in this world. Let's just say that out there. And her family and what they have, what I've been gifted on the side to just learn from her and just adapt myself and just be a different person. But at the same time, like, it gives you such a different perspective because you're finally sitting back and you're like asking yourself, what am I? Who am I? And a lot of times I fought with that, Tim, was that I was this Afghan-American kid who had the perspective of both cultures, the acceptance of both cultures because I just understood them in a different weird way because I grew up outside the house, inside the house with cultures. And then I asked myself, what's common sense? I think people misunderstand is like, they look at me and they're like, oh, he's just a pretty boy. He's just another Afghan boy. Probably just has a BMW at the house and stuff like that. Like normal foreign perspective. And I don't like at all hate that perspective because like I get why people would think that. And, you got to let them think what they already think of you. But when the questions come out and you're honest and they see it, that's when they really like are like, oh, I've had some people like come up to me and they're like, dude, I want to apologize. And I'm like, what the heck? I've had some females say that too. They're like, we didn't think you were this way. But I'm saying, it goes through every wisdom you get in life, whether it's from a different culture, it's from growing up as a kid to an adulthood or teenhood, whatever you want to call it, every wisdom is worth it. So learn as much as you can in your life. Don't be good at one thing if you're going to be good at something. Go be good at 10 different things. Have the common sense and the knowledge of how to do it. You're not going to like get better in this world and create a better future for your generation if you don't become creative with yourself. And I think people get scared when they're like, oh, I got to do this much work. But it's like, do you realize that if you don't do that work today, that's it for next week says for next month says for next year. And then next year is like when you're 30, then next thing you know, you're 45, next thing you know, you're 50, and you never did it. And like back to what Muhammad Ali said, you don't want to be that man who does the same thing for 30 years and just wastes his 30 years of his life. And I think that's just what I've got to is that I love being who I am. I love going through the challenges I have. I love the diversity challenges I've went through because it's made me human. I think people misunderstand is that they see this mean side of me sometimes when they see me work out or something. But people need to understand this. When I'm at the gym, there is nothing in the world you can do for me to care if that's the hot female fitness or if it's somebody's girlfriend or whatever it is. I do not care what you look like at the gym.
I'm the same way. When I go there, I'm there to just get my workout in. I'm in and out.
We're zoned in. I've noticed that when I've seen you, it's like always been, and I think people need to understand that when you're at the gym, don't go for that female who looks like she's a number 10. Go work out for yourself, man, or her. Like, do what you want to do. Because the thing is, people need to understand is that whether you're from Afghanistan or China or Philippines, South America, Cambodia, Panama or Mexico or Canada or England, whatever you want to call yourself from, if you do what you need to do for yourself in life and just become who you're supposed to, the right people always come to you. They always will be there for you. And you meet some amazing people. Like, we have had some amazing chats at the gym that I would never ever consider having with other people. Because I think it's just a matter of that you have this clear mindset that you're not afraid to ask a certain question.
Right.
And I'm not afraid to answer it, because I'm like, if Tim is willing to ask a question that is about some sort of different perspective or diversity, then if I can assist him with understanding or seeing a vision a certain way, then it's important, because he's asking. He wants to know. And it's like back to that female thing. I don't get it, dude. And in my own culture, why people do it that way, though. I mean, the whole idea of like shunning women out. I mean, now it's become more popular to like allow them to do what they need to do and go to school. But I mean, even to a certain perspective, I remember when I first moved here back in 2001, there was a family of like 4 or 5 kids. They had 2 daughters. Some of the most gorgeous Afghan women I've ever met. These 2 girls were definitely 2 of them. But their parents did not allow them to go to college after graduating high school. And it's killed me. And I was like, what the heck are you doing to your kids, bro?
Well, I mean, if it is so traditional,
but I'm
I
saying
mean, they're
it's
going to. I guess they're going to assume that tradition will hold true, and these girls will be able to find, you know, someone who can take care of them. They don't have to. They can have children. They can rear children, and they can raise their family and have that traditional motherly role. That's my guess, is why they would do that. They condition their children to think that that's what they should expect in life. Is that how it works? Because it's kind of how it works in the Mormon culture, to be honest with you.
But I've noticed that
not to that extent, but I mean, there's definitely conditioning when you're rearing your children.
And I am 100% agree. I'm gonna agree with you on that. Conditioning is a huge thing that happens to humans, and whether you're from Asia, you're from Africa, you're from Europe, or from South America, or North America, or Australia, every race has some sort of weird history to it, you know. And the other thing is that scientists finally came out, I think about 3 to 4 years ago. They said a kid between age of 0 to 7 learns the most at his life. And that's so true.
They learn the most is like intellectually, or are you talking more like emotional intelligence?
The emotional intelligence, because a lot of times you got to remember, a lot of kids don't ask after that time. You know, they kind of like, a lot of kids don't ask why.
Yeah, I was always taught, my parents always said, hey, if you don't understand, just ask them why. Just ask them. And if they can't explain it, then don't do what they want you to do, or don't, you know, act the way they want you to. I always question. I got in trouble growing up all the time by all my teachers, because when they would tell me to do something, or like I was being like confronted with something that I didn't understand, and I asked them, they'd be like, "Oh, what the fuck? You're a kid. Don't ask me why. Like, just do it." And I would always be like, "No, I
didn't understand.
No, I don't understand. Tell me why I'm doing this, so I know why I'm doing it. You know, I'm not a dog. You know, you don't just, you know, punish me right afterward with no explanation and expect me to figure it out."
And I think that's the worst thing you can do to a lot of a lot of foreign kids. They will not do that in school at all.
Do what? Ask questions?
Oh yeah. Are you kidding me? I was terrified because teachers hated me. I remember my 8th grade teacher hated me. My earth science teacher, Mr. Williams, he's actually Canadian. I don't know why he hated me, but he just hated me. And he hated my other friend, Malmer, who played football with your brother, too. And he's a
big dude.
Dude, Malmer's a big guy. Like,
I sparred him.
And people don't understand, like, that guy's a beast. And when he played football before he ruptured that collarbone and all that, that dude was a scary guy to go against.
He's a big dude.
like I don't
he's
know.
like 250, like 6 what?
Dude,
3,
he's
6'4".
He's like,
huge.
did you know that he's like working over at the prison, right?
Yeah, isn't he? He's like a security guard or
and his
something like
fiance is Miss Idaho.
Idaho, yeah.
So they're lovely people. I love that family very dearly, especially their older brother, Momo. That guy's like a big brother to me. He actually changed my whole world. When I was 21, you know, I was into the whole, like, I was just getting out after my surgery and everything. He told me a lot of advices, and one of them that stood out to me, he said, Omid, in this world, in the generation that we're growing up with, things are going to get really weird and very...
Things already are weird.
And things already... But he said, he's like, find a good woman that you can settle down with. He goes,
yeah.
But you got to make sure she's the right woman, and make sure that you're going to do what you need to do to be successful. And I think I finally get that now, like at 26, 27. I'm like, you know, because I've kind of stayed single for so many years. You know, it makes sense, like, in this way of generation and the way we're growing up in our lifestyle, it's sad because I've been pressed to get married since I was like 19 from my mom's side of culture. Get married, get married, get married, get married. I'm like, yeah. It will happen. It will happen. It will happen next year. And then I just kind of zip around it. So now it's like at 26, I'm like thinking about it. And like, it's like certain advice that you take in life changes your perspective, you know? And I think, you know, being that Afghan American and just trying to sit back, watch people like we do, and an intake, you know, the common sense of human characteristics. Like, what are you supposed to do and what you shouldn't do? You know, it's kind of funny to me, you know, the whole Jamie Foxx song, Blame It on the Alcohol. Boy, he knew how to sell an album, and he did it with one of the best songs. Okay, I'm going to just say that out there because people love to blame their actions on alcohol when they decide to get intoxicated. And it's kind of it got me very interested lately because I used to love tequila. If you knew me in my early 20s, it was a gallon of tequila every weekend usually. You know, I love my tequila. If my birthday twin was here, he would tell you all we ever drink is tequila when we go out. But I got to the point where I'm like sitting there, I was watching people, and when we were in China Blue in the VIP section, I'm sitting on the top of the
China Blue VIP.
Yeah, I was sitting on the top of the speakers, like I've always done it. I'm like, unless you're gonna kick me out like a boss, I'm gonna sit like a boss. So I'm sitting there and I'm watching everybody because I'm supposed to be out with one of my friends who just broke up with his girl. And I'm watching. People come up and say, what's up? And I'm like, yeah, what's up? You know, like certain people. Some of the girls that have talked to me, they were just walking by and they were just like saying hi, but they were just like, eh. And I was just like, I don't take it personally. If I don't date you and I tell you straight to your face, take it like it is. You know, I'm a straight, honest person. I like to be very... I'm not going to sugarcoat something to you, but I'm going to be honest with you. And I'm going to tell you why, you know. And I think one of the things that changed, that night I'm sitting there and I'm watching people. I'm watching like a group of the Turkish boys come in, a group of the Bosnian boys come in, and then a group of couple other like Arab guys come in, you know. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, and then you got the Hispanic culture in there as well. Then you got some of the, like, you know, the host and everything. I'm sitting there and I'm watching. As everybody is saying hi to everybody, everybody's sitting there in a clique. In their own little group clique, like their cultural clique, you know. And I'm just cracking up inside. I'm like, as much as we think we're in a term of diversity, we still don't accept it, though.
Well, and then you look at, I mean, like, you see it everywhere, though. Like, there's cliques everywhere, subcultures within cultures, you know?
Well, yeah, it's like, you know, like I was saying, like, people look at me like an American kid in our own culture. They don't look at me like an Afghan American kid because I don't do anything, a lot of things with them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't go to their parties. I don't go to their festivals. I don't go to their celebrations and stuff like that. My mom, my sister, you know, they're lovely ladies. They'll, like, if it's like a respectful thing among the family members, then it'll happen.
Mm-hmm.
But
are they pretty traditional, your siblings?
My younger brother's not. My sister is. She's very, like, she is to some distance, but you got to also understand, she is engaged to an American boy who's from Midwest.
Yeah, true.
He's from Kansas, guys. Like, Larry's
pretty
and Larry's a white name, bro. That's the thing about it. I love it. But I love Larry like my own brother. I've got to know him a lot. You know, he has completely not changed our family, but I think it gives a different comfort for my mom, knowing that, because she sees what people see in public, you know, but how guys act, you know. So to find somebody who isn't dominated by partying in his mid 20s and living like a king because he makes good income, it very quickly changed my mom's perspective on how she saw him. You know, because he's a good looking guy, but, you know, like any other salesman, he's very good at what he does. You know, he's at the top of his chain when it comes to being a salesman. And, you know, he does car dealerships, and he works with especially just GMC with Dennis Dillon. And the guy does an amazing job. But, like, the most amazing thing changing our perspective was that he's still acted like a human being. I think one of the stories my mom loves to explain is that she changed her perspective on Larry very quick on one day. And it's a story that my sister's sitting there explaining. We're sitting there at breakfast, everybody. She goes, we're sitting there at the stoplight, and there's multiple homeless people walking. He gets out of the car, hands one a 20, hands the other one 20, hands the other one 20. This guy's not rich, guys, but he knows how to be a genuine to people that don't have like what he has. He's grown up in a very tough environment home. I will say that. I know his little childhood history of what he has told me. And I got to meet his mom and his grandparents at the engagement party, and that whole weekend they were here. So it was a very fun weekend for us to learn from his side of his family and what he was telling me. And, you know, one of the things I was telling him yesterday, I got back after grocery shopping, and this is how different our culture is. Someone teaches something. So I love chicken livers.
I like liver and onions. I've made that a few times. Actually.
So chicken livers are one of my favorite easy curried protein dish. And the best thing about chicken liver, it is very high on protein. People don't know that, but it's super simple. So I'm taking it out of the container and I'm telling my mom, I'm like, Mom, can you show me the curry style that you do it with so I can learn? And he's sitting there and he's like, you really eat chicken livers? And I was like, yeah. He goes, back in Kansas, we just put that on a fish hook and we just fish like that for the catfishes.
Yeah.
And he was telling me, like, catfishes love that. And I'm saying, like, and I'm just sitting there and I'm like, this is how different our cultures is. Like, you know, like, if you went to the Midwest in Kansas, now you're going to find something completely different than what you would find here. And I don't know. And, like, I've been to New York. I've been to California. And my favorite town of all is New York. I don't think there's any city better in the world than New York. And if you think there's a better city than New York, I'm sorry. The traffic sucks. I completely agree with that. But New York changes perspectives. I walked by the Twin Towers, where the Twin Towers used to be, in Ground Zero. Tim, it's one of the most haunted places I've ever felt spiritually.
I believe it, man. There's still probably bodies down there.
The ugly part is that I'm a very, very spiritual believer as being an Afghan American. And if you go back into human history, Middle East is where the black magic and all that stuff was ever created. So let's break that down really quick for you. But I've been a huge believer of spiritual afterlife and everything, that there's protective and there's evil side of it too. I believe there's all sorts of connections with the universe. I'm a huge believer of that too. So I'm sitting there walking by Ground Zero. As I'm walking by, there's this nasty smell. I remember this smell. There's only one other places I remember that. In Kabul, Afghanistan. Back in I would say it was 1998 or 1997. There was a very nasty winter storm, and I had to walk from the market to my auntie's house where we were staying the night with my auntie and uncle who passed away a couple of years ago. And rest their souls, they're amazing people. I've been blessed with some amazing family members, so I'm going to say that quickly. But as I'm walking, there's this nasty, nasty smell. And I walk by, there's these two greyhounds ripping something and shredding in the alley. Well, if you knew what Afghanistan looked like back in that day, all the dump holes was going back to the alley. So you were walking by a lot of nasty smell some of the days. But you guys got to remember, that's a third world country back then, because it was shunned away from like electricity.
So these are bodies that you're talking about?
I don't know what exactly it was, but the greyhounds were like literally tearing something apart, and it was that nasty, that like death nasty smell. Like I think it could have been like
just a dead animal, maybe?
Dead animal that they just picked up from like probably like the other side of the alley or something. You got to understand, like, when the Taliban came in, and when Osama bin Laden was released by the CIA, and he overtook the north side of the province of Afghanistan and fought the Soviets with the Marines back in the very, very late 80s and early 90s. The guy had a lot of power. Had a lot of money too, because his dad flopped. If his dad dropped dead, let's be real, and he inherited a lot of money. So
didn't he own like a construction business?
That as well.
Huge,
he graduated from University of Boston. Guys, University of Massachusetts. I apologize. But thing is like that was the flip flop of Afghanistan turning into where the Taliban became a huge dominance, because as soon as the Soviet war was over, that turned into the whole Taliban section, and they had some civil wars going on as well with other leaders from other provinces, and then that's where it turned the whole Afghanistan to what it is now. Like, people don't understand. We had freedom like the United States did, just like any other culture did. If you also know history, you know that the Middle East passage was used for the salt to get to India. Well, before England even had that dominance, we had trade deals with Europe and the Persian culture. Iran and Afghanistan did. A lot of my grandparents' antique stuff was made in Europe, and it was hand designed and signed down at the bottom, which is you have to have like some sort of an artist who does that kind of work. And I was blessed to see those kind of things and understand them, that now in a different world I give it a very deep appreciation, because it kind of tells about my life and my history of my family differently than what I thought I knew. As a kid, you grow up, you're like, oh my gosh, I have food, I have a roof, I'm good. Like, you don't think about the depths of the other side of what your family has had done or does for a living, And so for me, it was like learning. And so I started really pulling deep into it after, honestly, after my last injury at 20 years old, I started really looking at it differently on my cultural background. I've always listened to the music because I always love and have had a very deep appreciation for music, whether it was rap. I love gospel rap. I'm a big gospel rap guy now. I love European music. I love European pop, American pop, electronic, EDS, you name it. Except for like what you love. We know this. Some of the screamo music I don't understand. I'm like, I don't understand what you're saying, bro. Come on now. But same thing with like
with mumble rap.
See, I hate mumble rap.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I cannot stand depressed country music, man. I love my Western movies. If you know me, truly know me, Western movies, if you're gonna want to like get to my heart as a woman, if you love Western movies and you fascinate me with a couple Western movies, hands down, I'm over. Like that's it. Like that will be the woman I get on my knees for. But the thing is that there's so much different things in the world, and I'm always sitting there and I'm always thinking to myself, I'm like, what if I don't learn the way I want to learn? You know, like I question certain things because I ask myself, let's be realistic. You know, you're trying to learn this and you're trying to be this way because you have a mom who doesn't understand certain things, but then you are questioning certain things from the way you're completely raised. Mm-hmm. And my siblings, like for my brother, he's like a little Buddha, bro. He is a little Buddha, bro. I love him. Like I love my little brother. He never loves to do anything weird or harmless or anything like that towards anybody. He's just his own person. But you know, and I believe in horoscopes and stuff like that too. So I totally believe what he is. He's an Aries. This is like a fire, and I'm Earth. Mm-hmm. So we have this very similar personality, then super opposite. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what makes me loving it, because like for me, growing up, like my mom, one of the things that she questioned me growing up in America was like, why aren't you acting like more like a dad to them, you know? And one thing I told my mom was that I'm their big brother. I'm not their dad. You know, like they're going to have to love being who they are, but they have to love like other people just the way other people are going to love them. Because people don't understand is that you can preach and do something to somebody or try to teach them to be some way, but they will never be how you see it. It's like that one quote. I don't know if you maybe have saw it or not. I posted a couple weeks ago or like last week or something. It's talking about visionary. I think I have it actually. Let me like just pull this up really quick. I think I still have it. And
who's this quote by?
I believe it's by what's it called? Rumi. I'm a big Rumi guy, dude. So Rumi is actually from Afghanistan too. So a lot of the Persian culture, they've been fighting it for centuries now. So Iranians believe that he was born in Iran. Afghan people believe he was born in Herat, which is the western province of Afghanistan. It's literally like saying El Paso, Texas, like almost to the border of Mexico.
Yeah.
And it's kind of crazy, but I don't know why I don't have it on here, but
one of my buddies that I used to work with, he became a translator for the military, and the FBI like came in and like I was put on a list for interviews, and I was like taken outside and like interrogated by this dude. And the whole time that I was like being interrogated, this guy was like all up in my face, like seeing if I was lying and shit, you know, if I was being truthful and with all the questions, and had to sign away all this, you know, sign all these papers to basically talk about this guy because they wanted to do background checks. You know, he's a guy going in from Afghanistan wanting to be a translator in the war, so only makes sense. And long story short, when we wrap up the interview, the guy like takes off his glasses and he's like totally normal, like he's out of his suit at that point. And
Yeah.
I'm like, what? This is the crazy experience that I've ever had.
So my auntie had a weird experience. Well, one of my cousins works for Homeland Security, and she one day was like answering the door, and there's two gentlemen at the door, and he had visited her one time before he started working for the government, and they had the two FBI agents just showed up to her door.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, who is this guy? Why did he visit you? What was he doing here? And I was like, it's funny. They don't do that to me. I mean, I call them maybe like once. I mean, I don't really call them that much, but I mean, like once a month or so, I'll get on the phone with them. But like, it's crazy what they're willing to do for the certain protective of being self-aware of our society and our communities and in the country.
Mm-hmm.
But how much more damage do we really do in the world, though, by protecting the world?
I try not to think about it on that level, to be honest with you.
See, it kills me inside because I'm going to be honest with you. Now, being an Afghan American, I'm going to bring something on your subject. One thing that killed a lot of these VAs that were overseas in Afghanistan or Iraq is OD. Heroin. 99% of the world comes from one little country.
It does come from Afghanistan, right?
Right?
Yeah. All the poppy fields.
Yep.
So it's not illegal to grow there, or it's not illegal to smoke, it's illegal to grow? What is it?
It's illegal to smoke it, as far as I know. As far as I know, back in the day when my grandma and my grandparents were alive, and when my mom was a teenager, one of her cousins loved it.
Mm-hmm.
It was a weird thing. She has, like, we have honest conversations, me and her. You know, we talk about some real stuff. She said, yeah, it was available, but if you got caught and with it in public, it was a serious thing. Just like, you know, drinking alcohol.
That's right. You still can't drink.
You still can't. But now, I'm going to be honest with you. Alcohol has become very popular in a foreign culture like that in Afghanistan and in Iraq now.
Don't they just hop a train and whatnot and go party in like Qatar or something?
No, it's just become very popular now because think
like
about
underground?
It's like the 1920 alcohol abominations when we had the whole idea that the government
the
prohibition with the whole alcohol side with where we cannot sell alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty much what goes on with certain markets in that Middle East culture now.
Mm-hmm.
Just because the religion says no, now people are very open-minded and don't care anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I hear about it. It's just like with, you know, what kills me inside is that we didn't go to the Middle East with a clear perspective. And I think that hurt us the most. And I feel this sorry because I'm gonna talk about something that's gonna really affect some people. They didn't think Afghanistan would have a deep impact with certain individuals, or Iraq would have a deep impact.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of my childhood friends, when he was in Afghanistan, he was messaging me on Facebook. He's like, bro, this is a 180 from what you were. This is a 180 what you were telling me. I told him when he first signed up for the Army Bray. I told him I was like, Fox. That was his last name. I was like, bro, I'm gonna tell you something. And I was like, you're gonna have to understand, that side of the world is a 180, and then flip it upside down, in a dirt mat. That's the world you're going into.
Mm-hmm.
Be ready for it. And I think certain conversations me and him had prepared him for certain things there. I mean, I wouldn't know completely, honestly, but I think it made himself a little bit aware that whatever we believe or say on the news isn't really completely true until I really see it.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was telling me how crazy it was and guarded every, military station was.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, that's how they have to be, because the hardest part about being an Afghan is that we love to have loyalty with people. I don't know if you've noticed that a lot with certain individual Middle Eastern people.
Mm-hmm.
They love loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
We don't expect it, but we will give it, because I think it's just normal in our nature. But the other thing that made me really aware was that it does so much damage. We did so much damage to our own military vets. See, they created this idea to where you went into the Middle East, you got dropped and picked up in a base that they chose you to, In those duffel bags, you could put anything you wanted. And for over 10 years, the military didn't, I would say about 10 years, the military didn't have an actual guidelines to go through duffel bags to make sure there wasn't any kind of opiates being brought back.
So a lot of contraband is brought up.
There's a lot of, and like I have a certain family member that he's not on my first bloodline, but he's like down my bloodline. He was saying that so much was going on in the Middle East at one point that the foreign intelligence operation of British and other people, Canadians and France and all those people, certain individuals that were working with those folks, they were never seen alive again.
Damn.
He was telling me this, and when he first moved here, and I was like, wow. I was like,
must be a lot of money going on. Yeah.
Well, think about this one now. Like, people don't understand is like when the Taliban took over Afghanistan, one of the things they don't understand is that Osama bin Laden was left with millions and millions of dollars from his dad. And when he bought all these defensive weapons of AKs from back in the 1992, 1991.
Bunch of old Soviet weapons.
Yeah, to patrol Soviets and get the Soviets out. Those were the same weapons that
Didn't we arm them? We armed... Oh, no, it was Iraq.
No, we armed Iraq.
Yeah, that's right. Well,
but
I mean, like, back in the 80s, I'm pretty sure we gave...
We armed Iraq because we took the gold, if you remember.
Oh.
We stole gold from them. We stole Saddam's gold.
Well, I'm talking, like, back in the 80s, though. I'm pretty sure we armed Osama bin Laden and all those guys. We sold them all those weapons to fight Russia, yeah?
That's what I'm saying, though.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm saying. Like, we literally, like...
We sold them a bunch of Russian, like, guns, though.
Yeah, we sold them all the AKs that we had from the Russians.
Yeah.
And then...
From, like... It wasn't, like, the Vietnam War, like, all the old
It was the Cold War.
It
was the Cold War from the 70s and stuff like that was left. But, I mean, think about it. Like, a lot of these tanks, a lot of these guns were hidden. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, Tim. The other thing is people don't understand is that a lot of places in Afghanistan, the back roads had mines.
Mm-hmm.
People don't understand this. Like, if you were to travel back in those days, you were lucky to get from one side of the country to the other side without getting armed. You would hear about traveling trucks that would carry, cartilage of food and other beverages from one side of country to the other. You would hear about explosions happening on the side of the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do nothing about somebody that's dying on the side of the mountain.
Right.
So to this day, they are still mines that they have not found that can blow up anytime.
Totally.
And people don't understand is that we live in a country that is so gifted, so amazing, And I think people will take that for granted, to a certain perspective. Like, I sit there and I'm like counting my blessings. I'm like, I don't have a rocket flying over my house.
Mm-hmm.
I don't got a crazy Middle East towelhead guy sitting there preaching about hardcore of religious perspective on me and belt whipping me. People don't understand. When prayer time was happening and the Talibans were out on the streets, if you were not closed and your store were not closed, you got your ass handed to you with belts, guns, and they would just keep coming at you. They didn't give a shit about you whether you were somebody that made business or not. Like, the other thing that changed my perspective, I wrote it down on my journal the other day because I was writing down. I was getting really frustrated with what was going on with the other guy that was being racist and making some comments. I saw something that changed my whole perspective at age 7 when I was in 1999 in Afghanistan. I was walking with my mom in that Kabul market. The thing I was going to tell you was that I watched a kid with 3 fingers in one hand, 2 fingers with the other hand, no legs, selling plastic bag at age 6.
Plastic bags?
Plastic bags to make a living.
Like what kind of bags?
Just a normal plastic bag so you can carry your grocery.
What? Hold on. And this is in why? So where are his parents at? Where?
That's his way of him taking care of his family, bro. That's
Wow.
the people think.
Everybody
like,
has to contribute.
every way. Like, people don't understand. Like,
Did he have his no legs and his hands like that because the Taliban did that to him? As
I
a
have
punishment?
no idea. But honestly,
family?
I have no clue what was a thing. But that thing right there, I wouldn't doubt something along those lines of where Talibans did some sort of damage or he got caught in some sort of crossfire or something that, but the limb part with the hands, that made sense because I saw with my own eyes. With the leg thing, it was covered up. And I think people don't understand is that I used to complain about taking the dough to the bakery for my grandma. Bless her heart. Love you, BB. You know who you are, and I've always loved you for taking care of me as a kid. But the thing is that BB means grandma in Farsi, in Dari, and that's what I called her growing up. So, like that day, watching that kid and walking with my mom changed my whole perspective of what I thought of the world.
Yeah, running dough ain't so bad now.
No, running dough to the bakery. If your kid is complaining, you should smack him a little bit harder in the back of the head. I'm just gonna say that.
Tell him to listen to this podcast,
dude. I swear, like, that whole. I mean, it gives me chills to this day, sitting there watching people complain about pains. Mm-hmm. I think people don't understand what pain is until you really suffer pain. That was 1999, and about 3 blocks away from my auntie's house on the main street of where the market starts. And, bless her heart, she's not with us anymore. But, like, I remember that day like it was yesterday. Mm-hmm. And I think after that day, I never told myself, you can suffer in any way in the world. You can bend any way in the world. But you will never break like anybody else in the world. Mm-hmm. And I think people don't understand is that I'm going to give another perspective. A lot of ladies out there in the world, you guys are a lot more bendable than some men. They just have this gutsy feeling about them. Mm-hmm. Like my mom, when I see my mom, seeing her as an Afghan American, I think this is another thing why I've never been married, and this is why I've never been tied down to a single woman, is that I see her will and the way she handles it as a foreign woman with the language barrier and everything. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, how the heck are you doing it? Like, why? Like, I literally had this conversation with her, and she was like, well, she
She goes, if I don't do it, who's going to do it for me? She goes, I'm sorry, but like you guys are my boys and you guys are my kids. But she goes, at a certain point, you guys have to grow up and do things completely on your own that is you know, it's practice in this culture. And I was like, wait, what? Like you're my mom. Like, you don't get to talk to me like that. Like, you know, like I got a little butthurt. And she's like, no, but I'm being serious. She goes, I raised all three of my own on my own. I'm not gonna just allow you guys to just do everything for me either, you know? And I'm sitting there and I'm like, so here's a lady who does not understand the culture completely 100%. She doesn't understand the language completely. She speaks a completely different language. She works at the airport, and she is very hard-headed in her ways and not giving up. And she goes, you know, and it made sense because I was sitting there and thinking about it after my surgery 3 weeks ago, when I came out of surgery on the 25th of October, just last month. And I was sitting there and I was laying in my bed and I'm like, I was thinking about that kid. And I was like, I'll never complain about pain ever again. And I was like, and my mom's like, you need to take your meds. And I was like, yeah, I'll take them. Like, I was trying to drag it as long as I can, because, you know, they try to feed you hydros and all that crap after surgery and all that. I'm sitting there and I'm like, my body's already at like 60 milligrams of hydro for the day. I mean, that's the most. You're not supposed to take more than 50 technically in some cases. And I'm sitting there like 60, 70 already, taking my last two. And I told myself that afternoon, I was like, whatever it takes tonight, I better walk a quarter of a mile. Because if I can't do that, then I'm not really my mother's child. So I get up that afternoon. I walk up and down the hall twice. Okay, up and down the hall this afternoon. My best friend and these other friends came by and hung out. They were like recording and messing with me because I'm on meds. Like, they're just having fun. They leave. As soon as they left, I got back on the halls and I just walked up and down twice again. Within a couple of days, I got off the meds, and and everybody was like looking at me like, what's going on with you? Like, and I'm trying to like completely. You got to understand, when you're taking 70 to 80 milligrams of hydros, and then when they send your butt home, and you're sitting there at 20 to 30, you feel the pain. I'm sorry, Tim. Like right now, I still have my spinal surgery belt on, and I feel it sometimes, and I feel that little bit of aching, and I'm sitting there wearing myself off slowly, because like you gotta understand like how opiates work. If you know what opiate damage can do to you liver wise, and if people think like
it's not the opiate that hurts you, it's the Tylenol.
Well, that too, but at the same time, you also understand like hydros and oxycodones aren't the only way to get addicted to painkillers. People don't understand that. They just finally came out with an evidence that said tramadol does that. When my first surgery happened, tramadol gave me the worst itchy feeling I've ever had in my entire life.
Yeah, tramadol didn't do anything for me.
And I hate that. And so for me, like now, I will rather just suffer with the pain and ice my back than take any of those, to be honest with you. That's just my perspective. I mean, at the beginning of the surgery part, it was painful just because like you're cut open, let's be honest. But other than that, like, it got better. And then the thing is, it was like, it made me very aware, like, I am really my mother's child. The way I think, the way I do certain things, there's this whole side of me that's American and dominated by American. Just the perspective, the way I try to not just understand something, but try to be open-minded about it. And I think if you don't understand this, like, I said this quote a long time ago, and I wrote it down in my journal, and I said, America's not built for now. America's always been built for future generation. We don't do anything for now. We've always done it for future. I mean, the way our politicians work, everything that we ever have done in the world, it's always for future generation. And You know, and if you think America is the only culture that does that, you're wrong. Look at other history. Every other culture does that too. But I think what's made me really understanding on that different perspective was that I didn't want to be just good at one thing anymore. And that 8th grade teacher really pissed me off. And I'll take that probably to my grave one day. Mr. Williams, like, I remember, like, what he said. It's funny, though. After graduation of high school, I'm sitting there at the West Y working part-time as a trainer in Meridian, Idaho, or Boise, whatever, West Boise. And he comes up to me. He goes, "Hey, Omid, how you doing?" I'm like, "I'm doing good." He goes, "Did you ever graduate high school?" That was the first question that came out of his mouth. I was like, and so I like looked at him like with a smirk on my face. I was like, "Of course, like, I'm going to college and I'm a trainer here, like, I'm doing." He goes, "I'm very shocked. I didn't think you were going to graduate. I thought you were going to end up in jail." And straight out, just
Damn,
straight out, bold, like very bold. I mean, I've never had a teacher say that to me, honestly. I mean, I've had teachers act a certain way that I knew was kind of a little bit deceiving on the negative side, like just to, like, not put it like the racist side, but like, I'm just gonna treat you a little bit different. But I just laughed at him, and I was just like, there's an assumption within mankind, and it's not wrong. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, I think people don't understand is that judging is part of being a human. Your mind, your heart, the way you think, the way you do things, you are constantly on a brink of thinking when you see something. What is it? What is it for? What is it good for? Does it look good? Does it look right? Does it look bad? These are the things you process right off the back. Like, let's be honest. When you go to like an outside bar, when we go to like a dive bar or something, and you see a hot girl, you right off the back start thinking everything. Like, you question down the line to the T. And like, I know guys like me and you, I'm like, if she can hit a certain standard, then yeah, I'm gonna go talk to her. But if she's just like any other girl, then no thank you. Like, there's plenty of you out in the world.
Yeah,
there's every day for that. But like,
if you're not gonna bring me Western movies and make me dinner, then you're probably not worth it.
Exactly.
Right?
That's exactly what it is. It's like you can't.
Gotta have the right qualities, ladies.
Yeah, but I think it's cool though. Like, that whole perspective is that I don't change it for anything in the world. I think that kid back in 1999, seeing him limp around from one side of the carpet to the other side of the carpet selling plastic bags, gives me the perspective that I'm here as an Afghan American, as an immigrant, as a different. Like, I love to say I'm different than people. Like, we are different than most people, because I believe we are. I believe that the fact that we do certain things so much different than other people. And I think being different is okay. And I think a lot of people are a little bit scared of that too, though. And I think that's what hurts a little bit of diversity, is that fear of being different. And I think, you gotta know the people, ask the question to understand. If you don't do that, we're in the wrong place in the wrong time on this planet. Then, I always go around and tell my mom, I'm like, I wish I was born 100 years old earlier. She goes, why? I was like, I would have dominated the prohibition. I always tell her that. I was like, I would have destroyed America's prohibition laws.
How so?
I think people don't understand this, though. When I was younger, I made runs for people.
You hustled.
I hustled like a dog, and nobody knew about it. For years, nobody knew about it. But it was only weed. Let's just break it down. Like, it was only weed. That's all it was. And I got good at it. Nobody knew. Nobody could figure that this Middle Eastern jock, was, selling a couple bags of weed a couple times a week. Nobody knew that. But that's the thing, though, with people, is that when I was that age, I shunned away from a lot of things when it came to those things outside of my personalities. People don't understand is that you can't bring those things into your personal life. You can't get it involved with your personal family. You can't have it around your personal friends. Those things are acquaintances stuff, like, people don't understand. Is like, I always use the word acquaintances. It's like the people you say hi to, and once in a while, like, hang out with, but you don't really talk to them on a normal basis. Like I say, like, we're friends because we can have deep conversation within 10 minutes of seeing each other at the gym. I think that's a different perspective because we click on a different level. So with that, as an Afghan American kid, like, people didn't realize, like, some of my friends picked up on it later on, and like towards the junior and senior high school year, like, oh, this boy's a hustler. Oh, he is definitely hustling. But like I said, like, I didn't bring it into my personal life. I kept a certain thing because I think it goes back to being that
You don't shit where you eat, man.
That's the other thing. And the other thing was, like, I was like, in our culture, if you were to get busted for something like that, oh, they will look shame on you for the rest of your life, dude. I'm not even kidding you. Like, I'm sure, like, they are, they listen to everything we do now. I mean, these little technology things that we call iPhones and smartphones, if they wanted to hear you, what you're doing and what you're watching and what you're actually putting down and everything, they can easily access your phone any second they decide to.
It's probably recording right now, man.
And that's the other thing too. It's like the speakers are always on.
Yeah, it's always on. And that's why when I say, okay, Google, my phone's like, what the fuck did you just say? What can I do for you? What's going on? How can I record more shit? How can I get more data?
I always find it funny because I'm like, my mom started doing a lot of things with smartphones, and I didn't expect that from a foreign woman, especially, I mean, let's be honest. We're talking
it's probably
about
really liberating for somebody like her.
Like, she plays video games. She uses the GPS. She does texting. She does almost everything you wanted to do with a smartphone. And I'm talking about a 52-year-old Afghan American woman who does not speak English, other than basic English that she can do, like, hi, how are you?
Is her phone in what language?
It's in English.
It's in English. Wow.
Yeah. So when she texts my brother-in-law, she texts him in English. When she's texting me, she's texting me in English.
She can set her phone everything default in
to Farsi if she if she wanted
to. Farsi? That's what
it's Dari, but Farsi.
It's a dialect of Farsi.
Yeah, but see, the Farsi thing is that Farsi finally became its own dialect after the salt trade, because it got influenced with the Eastern European tongue. So it's spoken a little bit sweeter almost. It's like almost like a sweeter way to say something. Like
almost like a Latin. It's not as harsh.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in Dari,
like Dutch is really harsh compared to like French.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So she like, it gets me interested, and I'm like sitting there and I'm watching. I'm like what are you like with smart TV? Like, I put my smart TV when I gave her my smart TV, and she's sitting there and she does Google, and not Google. She will go to YouTube from the actual videos. From just the remote and stuff like that, and that's how she catches up on her TV shows and stuff like that. And I'm like sitting there, and I'm like watching. I'm like, dude, it's a different world, and I think it's like, and it's awesome because it's like allowing somebody who doesn't understand certain things to do the things that she's curious about or she's asking about.
She has freedom.
If she has that freedom to research anything she's curious about now.
Mm-hmm.
Or anything she doesn't understand, she can question it. And I think the other part is that, with her, it's kind of cool to watch, is that she's become more Americanized now than I have now in my mid-20s. It's weird to say that, though, because, like, now I am super intuitive about knowing the
Or
depth.
maybe she's a little more expressive in the way that she accesses that freedom. Maybe it's just something so new to her. For you, it's, I don't know, maybe she's not more cultured. I would say you're probably a little more cultured just because you grew up in the system already. She didn't,
Well, yeah, I would say that.
She probably exercises her freedoms a little more expressively.
Well, think about it this way. I think you just nailed it on the spot, Tim, was the fact that you said it, the excessive part, but also the having the tools to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So we used to like research things and watch YouTube videos on a computer. We never did it with smartphones till smartphones came out.
Mm-hmm.
So the access for us to have it back in the mid, like let's say 2008 to 2012. That's when smartphones just, boomed completely.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have YouTube videos you can watch on your smartphone now. So I think you kind of nailed it on the spot with the fact that it's easy access now for her, because she has the advantage now to just flip a phone and watch it, or flip the channel, go to home, hit YouTube, and go to YouTube. And I think it's cool, but at the same time, I've also watched this other side of her where she tunes a lot of things out now. In the technology world, it's because she's part of, let's be real, when she calls us, she rarely ever FaceTimes me, but she's always FaceTiming my sister whenever they talk, and I'm like, 10 years ago, she can only do that on Skype.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you had, what was it, Voodoo or whatever it is, like whatever little weird app you had to have to get on some sort of, video chat. It made me very interested the other day because I was sitting there watching her, and she was literally playing this game, but it was like those brain games, and I'm sitting there and I'm watching her, and she literally completes the challenge. It starts out with 45 seconds or whatever. She had like 20 something seconds left, and she finished the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what the heck are you doing? And I was impressed because I'm sitting there and I'm like, you don't usually have a lot of parents doing that.
Right.
That diversity breaks down, because she battled with it a lot. When I got in trouble as a kid, and I got in a lot of fights, and I had weekly visits to the principal's office. And, I am very blessed with a very amazing mom, because she never, took it personally and took it out on me. But she understood that kids were being kids, And, so in that perspective, I was just sitting there the other day, and I was just thinking about it, and I was just like, we don't get to teach our parents anything new anymore. It's a different world. We are so intuitive with our personal lives and what we do. So when it comes to that challenge of diversity or adversity on certain levels, because every level is a different thing, whether you like to call it or not, adversity may be with a language, it may be with an injury, it may be with what you're going through personal life, what you're going with through people. It can be anything you want to see it as. Adversity happens in different ways. But the other thing was, I'm sitting there watching her. She is demolishing this game. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, it's scary. She goes, do you want to try? I tried it, and I think I had 3 seconds left before I can finally finish the actual level, compared to what she did. 28 seconds to 3 seconds or whatever you want to call it. I'm sitting there and I'm like, this is not okay. Because because I used to do the same thing. I used to download a couple of, brain games and did it. And I was like, either my mom's like reaction to things have picked up faster to adapting what's going on this, like when she's driving and other things, or my self-awareness has changed, or I'm just not seeing what she's been doing, So I'm sitting there. So I asked her, I was like, why do you do that? She goes, it makes me self-aware a little bit faster. It's making me, aware of what I can and can't do in certain things. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, here's a lady who doesn't speak the language, downloads the game, plays it, but understands the concept of it. Mm-hmm. And so we're sitting there and having this talk. She goes, it's funny though, because we're having this conversation now. She goes, it's just like anything else that you have to learn. She goes, you just have to mess with it till you learn. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm intrigued. Like, I'm just watching my mom, who doesn't speak the language, barely, very barely, but understands the concept of something that she's doing in this format of technology. And I was just sitting there and I was like, I'm super impressed, because I'm sitting there, I'm like, I did not expect that. And if we're going to bet on money on it, I would have bet millions and millions and millions of dollars that my mom would have never, ever would be able to text, play video games, use the GPS, or do anything that she wanted to do in English format on a smartphone. I never believed that. I'm going to be completely honest. I never thought it was possible.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I'm the same way. My mom abuses Instagram, so.
Dude, but I love Instagram.
Like every
though.
time I post something, my mom responds to it. I'm like, Mom, like, you don't have to respond to every one of my story uploads. Like, let's be real.
But I love Instagram. I will say this though: Instagram made me very self-aware about my art side. Mm-hmm. It's a very weird way to express yourself. But I think people can understand by the message with what you're posting. Like yesterday, like I posted some modeling pictures, and I think people don't understand is like I'm very, very intuitive about quotes and what they mean to me. And one of the things is that certain quotes I take deeply to my heart. Mm-hmm. And I think it's the way I've grown up and understand is that words become your thoughts become your actions become your reality. That's just the way I've always believed that you live your life. Mm-hmm. And one of the things as I was reading is like that made me kind of wow this past summer, because I was in a really nasty funk this past summer. Mm-hmm. And this made me very, very self-aware about it. It says, I do struggle because I'm attracted to beautiful things. Yet at the same time, I'm actually very aware, in some sense, of their lack of value, and that most important things in life are your connections to other people. And that was by Tom Ford.
I think I saw you post that.
Yeah, and it was with the multiple pictures that I posted. Mm-hmm. Because this past summer, I was in like a 4-month depression. And I think it was just a lot that was going on in my personal lives that really, really took me out, like completely. Like I didn't go to the gym for like 6 weeks. And I'm a meathead of myself in a weird way. I love the gym. 6 days, 5 days a week, I'm doing some sort of HIIT workout or some sort of high volume workouts, because my back can't take the heavy lifting anymore, so I have to be very careful. But things like that are the ways that have changed my life, in quotes. And Muhammad Ali, of course, Malcolm X changed my perspective on America because of one thing. When he was trying to show America how closed-minded Muslim Americans were back in the 60s, nobody paid attention. They shunned them out. It's the craziest part. When he was trying to confess, the leader of the Muslim culture back in the 60s, because if you know Malcolm X was actually a Muslim, and the ugly side of it is that he was trying to show those leaders that you can't impregnate your own receptionist. These were young young Muslim women back in the 60s that was getting raped right and left, and the Midwest culture, and especially in Chicago, because that's where one of the biggest leading Islamic culture was back in the 60s, was in the Midwest, and Chicago was the main capital of it. And it's just interesting that history is only repeating itself with what we're doing. It's not, I always say, I'm going to say this completely honest. The Persian culture, when they had the big empire, they enslaved more Mongolians than anybody else would ever have. It's just never talked about. Just like the Chinese did it to them, we did it to them too. Just like the Australians did it to the natives, when the New England folks went down there. And just like the African tribes did to different African tribes. Because if you don't want to talk about real history, let's talk about real history. Like slavery and hating one another culture has been passed down for centuries. And people don't realize that. And if we don't change how we act as humans on the side of not knowing something, we're only going to repeat ourselves in our own messes. And the thing is like, I love to say this, is that don't look at me like I am different. Don't look at me like I'm any special. And if you think I'm different, I'm okay with that. I will respect you for that. Like, I believe I'm different. Like, when I sit in our room of a bunch of people and they're just drinking and doing things, and I'm just sitting there and I'm sipping on a water and sipping on a beer, I completely zone out to the point where I'm just sitting there and people are watching. And I don't try to do it a lot because I've been caught a lot by it. And people, like, girls come up and they're like, so, are you people watching or what? Like, And I'm like, it's, for me, it's interesting because there's certain actions that humans do that I don't understand. But that's where the psychology part comes in. Like, the practicing of habits. And, I think, like we were saying back in our beginning of the podcast, is like habits starts with a certain early childhood, and I was blessed to taught different things at a certain age that made me aware that I was a little bit different, because I questioned religion. I questioned life, death at like 4 or 5 age. Like I questioned certain things at a very early age because I was witness to it. So I questioned what was going on, what was the concept of it, what was going. And I'm gonna be honest. Like, I saw my own grandma die in front of me. I saw, like, I've lost over 10 people in the last 15 years, just in the state. I've lost very, very close people to me. And for me, people don't understand is that I take those losses very serious. I make it personal because I don't sit there and want to do something is the benefit of somebody else or the benefit of me, but more of the benefit for my moral values. What was I grown to taught to be? And I think people don't understand is that I don't ever do anything so somebody else can have it. If I'm doing a kindness work, it's not for that individual. I believe the man above, the spirits, the world, the universe, the cosmos, my vibe, whatever you believe, I believe is my spiritual setting to that place and time when I do something for another person. And I think my grandma thought that very well. She said, you can't ever do anything for a human being if you don't have any money, but you can always have common sense and kindness. And like opening a door, I think it was the biggest value I ever learned as a kid. She made me open the doors all the time. I was like 4 or 5 years old, running around in front of her, opening a door. And I think that was the biggest thing I ever learned, was that she pushed us to doing those things. And now, like, when I go to San Diego or something, I remember I had 2 elderly folks literally just look at me like I was a retard, holding the door for them. They're like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Holding the door for you." They're like, "Where are you from?" And I was like, "From Idaho." They're like, "That's why." And I was like laughing about it. And I was like, what just happened? Wait, what? Like, I'm just trying to go to Red Robin's after 24-hour fitness in Mission Beach, California. And next thing you know, these folks are laughing because I'm holding the door. But then, like, I remember the lady, she's like, when we were walking up, she goes, "It's not common here."
Probably not.
And I was like, wow.
People
Like,
are rude nowadays, man.
It's just a weird thing for me. It's like, I think people should ask. Like I said, if you don't understand, ask. If you ask, you will know. If you know, then you will have a perspective of it. It's not about understanding it. I think people, the biggest concept and the biggest lie that's been spread around to our culture is that you have to understand what people tell you. You don't have to understand it. You just have to get the perspective of what the meaning is, if that makes sense.
Totally.
I think when you do that, you're not white and black anymore, or brown and white anymore. You're more as like, see, when I look at human being, I'm just to kind of tell you it like it is. It's like when I look at a human being, the first thing I look at before I look at any kind of thing, and I've practiced myself and I've told myself to do this, they're nothing more than a human being before they're anything else. It's such a weird concept to think. Like, I always tell myself, I'm like, you're nothing more than a human being. A human being can only be what he wants to be. So if you want to be politically right, you can go be politically right. If you want to be a comedian, you can go be a comedian. If you want to be an athlete, you can be an athlete. But before all that, you're just a human being.
In America, you can do that.
In America, you can do that.
But in most places, you can't do that.
Because that's the thing. In America,
most places you're told what you can and can't do.
Well, because most places are, in a weird way, they don't want to admit it, they're still in a communist cultural.
Yeah, totally.
And you give the freedom of speech, the freedom to be what you want to do, the freedom to go study. You don't get that anywhere else but in America. Like, let me just say that. Like, I grew up with a lot of hatred with the cultural background, Tim, but like, I wouldn't trade the way I was raised up and the adversities that I went through by any means, because it gives me the perspective to talk about it like we do now. Like, 10, 15 years down the road, I get to sit here and have this conversation with you. This is the most beautiful country in the world. And I think people don't understand how gifted and beautiful this place is.
America.
In America. And anywhere you go in America, you will not find anywhere better outgoing people than America. Most other cultures in Europe, if you've been there or have traveled to Europe, a lot of times if you tell them that you're American, They don't like you, bro.
Yeah, no, that's true.
And like for me, like I am Americanized. I have a whole sleeve tatted up my arm, you know. So for me, even going to like a Middle East country is going to be difficult because I am American to them. I'm not anything else. I am American to them. And I think people need to understand is that we need to like stop with the idea of hating something and ask with the question of why. Why do I not like something because of this? So if you don't like it, let's talk about it. Let's talk about why you think I'm different. Let's talk about what is your perspective that makes you feel the way it makes you feel. Because the only thing is that the only way we can survive with diversity in this culture, because they're saying by 2020 we're supposed to be one of the most melting pot in the world, you know, in America. That hasn't happened. You know, that hasn't happened. But
Pretty big melting pot, dude.
by 2030, if we don't take care of ourselves as humans, AIs will take over us.
Probably. Might take over sooner than that, man.
I am not kidding you. By 2030, most jobs will be replaced by AIs.
Might be automated, sure.
Oh, yeah. And then next thing you know, most humans are replaced by AIs. Because
those people who get replaced by AI should probably find a job to take care of the AI. So go find a programming job.
That's what I'm saying. You better educate yourself.
Yeah, well, I mean, somebody's got to take care of it. There's got to be mechanics taking care of cars, you know. Like, cars are going to start driving us, but somebody's got to take care of the cars when they break down. It's going to be the exact same with AI, man. You got to have coders out there. You got to have people to take care of it. That won't all be automated. I don't think so. It could be.
I just hope that whatever we do from here on out, we're doing it on a positive matter. Because, you know, like, I've never really personally talked about my personal life like this.
Well, thanks for doing it.
Of course. You know, like, we talked about it and that I was going to do it. So I think it's that people need to understand is that be you. Be curious. Ask questions if you don't understand. But most of all, be kind to one another.
Just be a good human being.
Yeah, be a good human being. Because honestly, the other scary part is that we are one war away from literally killing every species on this planet. And it's kind of a scary thing to say that. And I'm going to be completely honest. You don't want to live in a country where you're raised up with hatred and all sorts of weird stuff. You don't. It's an ugly place. You don't want rockets, and you don't want Battlefield LA to really exist. Is how I'm gonna put it. Really. Yeah. Like, be a nice human being to other people. Be yourself. Ask questions if you don't understand somebody. Like, the only way we adapt and grow as human beings is that we get more knowledgeable about what we don't understand.
Exactly. Good call, man. Well, where can people find you if they have questions?
I got my Instagram right now, so it's going to be ifitmid23. I also have Snapchat on there. Same thing, ifitmid23. I also have my Facebook. It's actually my first original name, which I'm actually changing it to. It's Shafiq. It's capital SHAFIQ. Omid Nawabi is what I'm changing my full name to. NAWABIA. If you want to have any kind of conversation, any kind of questions, more than welcome to follow me. Text me. I don't personally give my number to people I don't know. But if I got to know you, I would definitely, reach out to you and make sure we have some sort of communication, and whatever growth that needs to happen, I'll do my part.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks again for coming on Channel 99, everybody. And make sure that you be kind to everybody and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Have a good night, guys. Peace. Thank you, Tim.
Yeah.